Michael, Allison. Hey, congratulations on your documentary series, The Perfect Wife, The Mysterious Disappearance of Sherri Papini.
Thank you so much.
So tell us what basically sparked you two to make this documentary. What was the journey towards to this point?
Well,
You
Allison,
want to go hard? I can sort of start with the origin of it, but I think in 2022 we had sort of reached out to Keith once Sherri had pled, and it took some time. I don't think he was really ready to speak, but we talked and then talked again and talked again, and I think at a certain point towards the end of 2022 he was ready. So we did research, we did some, a small interview with him, and ultimately decided to partner with Hulu on it. And as soon as we were starting to get ready to produce the documentary, we connected with Aaron Lee Carr, who became an EP on the project, and recommended Michael, who became our fantastic director on the series. And immediately Mike was just like dug in, just dug right into sort of all the story.
yeah, when I hadn't heard of the story when it happened in 2016 through 2022, it was just for some reason completely off my radar. So, when I heard about it, when Aaron Lee Carr, I had actually just been shooting a series for Aaron. She told me about the project. I was just completely sorry about that. I was just completely fascinated by the story. And then when Allison shared a sizzle that they put together, and I saw all of the archival material that existed, and the fact that they had access to Keith, it just really it was so rich. There was just so much there to tell the story. And as a documentary filmmaker, that's the whole thing, is just having those sort of materials and that kind of access. So I was hooked pretty fast.
Wow. Allison, what exactly did you think you said that convinced Keith to reverse course and retell his story? Because he went through a very tough situation, and it takes a lot for someone to relive this story again.
I think we just let it take its course. I think we didn't put any pressure on him. And I think that's the way Keith is. I think it just, we just tried to make him very comfortable with our boundaries and sort of our work. And, we shared a lot of the work we'd done prior. We had worked with Elizabeth Smart on her documentary. So we've done a lot of topics that are sensitive when you're digging into, your past, that is hard. And so I don't know if it was one thing or if it was sort of just an overall mutual feeling where we felt we were trying to be very supportive of sort of him wanting to share what he knew. And then Mike really had the exact same approach. I think the whole team did. It's very much saying to everybody who participated, we really just want to hear what happened to you and kind of go from there.
Most excellent. Mike, tell us about their approach on a series, something like this, with so much information, so many interviews. I mean, how do you want to balance all this? This is a lot. I didn't realize there was even this much information and footage throughout the watching the
Yeah,
series.
no, I mean, it's a good problem to have when you have that much to work with. But we started the edit very early, and that was something that I thought would be really helpful. And Allison and I, we talked a lot about sort of the edit schedule, and we really agreed that we just needed a long time. We needed a lot of time for editors to really be able to explore a bit. And that's a luxury that I'm so grateful that we had, because that's not often the case in series, just because they take, they're really expensive and they take a long time. But I think in this case, Allison and I, and then Hulu, very, very fortunately, was completely on board with our approach. And so we really started the edit really early. And so we had time to really see what was working and see what wasn't working. But very early on, we knew that we wanted the first episode to be the month of November 2016. And we wanted that to just really just dig into Sherri's disappearance. And we wanted that first episode to be a present tense experiential experience for the audience, where you you don't know what to believe. You're very much just dropped into this world where your wife is missing, and you have no idea what's going on. And that was Keith's experience. And we wanted everyone to kind of relive that experience. And then in episodes 2 and 3, which then span a 4-year period of time, I'm sorry, a 6-year period of time, then you're really with Keith and you're in his headspace as he's kind of reckoning with whether or not this person who's the closest person to him is to be trusted.
Was it always originally thought as a 3-episode series, or did you try to plan it like a movie at first and maybe you figured there was just too much footage, or was it much longer and then you decided like, oh no, we need to cut things out?
I mean, I think there were kind of 3 natural chapters, right? There's the kidnapping, then there's the chapter of life after and how you handle that kind of a traumatic experience if that had actually happened to you. And sort of the FBI meeting was really kind of that tipping point of something's really not right. I think we also thought maybe it was 4 chapters. I mean, but we knew that it encompassed such a long period of time and had, you know, real elements that you could take. And so it felt definitely like 3 and sometimes like 4, right?
Yeah, completely agree.
Were you disappointed that you couldn't get Sherri into this documentary, that she refused or declined? And I was also curious if you also try to reach out to I want to say James Reyes also to get more of a clarification on his story.
Yeah, we certainly tried to speak to both Sherri and James. We tried longer with Sherri. And it's always disappointing when someone won't get back to you. But I think that Sherri is so much a presence in this series because of all of this archival material we have with her. We have home videos, text messages, voice memos, all of these
FBI
interviews
video,
that she
yeah.
did, FBI, exactly, yeah, law enforcement videos. And so you really do get to hear from Sherri in an unedited type of way, where I think that if she had sat down with us, we had every reason to believe that she would be very guarded and would continue to tell the story that we hear that she's telling to this day, which is a lie, that she was convicted of telling, in court. So we do think that Sherri's perspective comes through. But of course, it would be fascinating to sit down across from her and see what she says. But yeah.
Now, I have to be impressed. The dioramas that you guys produced for the series was very impressive. Tell us about your production design. Production designer came up with all that to fill in the stories.
Yeah, so well, it's the idea for that came from Keith when one of the interview, and it's in the film, when Keith told us that the therapist recommended that he and Sherri set up shoeboxes to try to figure out the layout of the room that she was held in, and where the door was, where the closet that she was chained to was, where the bed was. And so Keith was telling us about these shoeboxes that they were trying to use. That sparked in the mind of one of our editors, Colin Kosak, this idea that we do dioramas, like shoebox dioramas, but obviously much higher production value. And so that was the idea for it. And then we went to this amazing team called Nixon Gerber, who had done they do dioramas for a lot of different films and commercials, but they had worked with Aaron Lee Carr on a previous project. And I thought that their work was just wild. And so, yeah, we approached them and they were super excited about it. And yeah, created these little static nightmares for us.
What do you think of, why do you think society is so still obsessed over Sherri Papini after all these years? Because we're talking about something that happened back in 2016, which is nearly eight years ago. We had a movie. We're coming out with this documentary series. Even Eminem, this couple weeks ago, even put a lyric of Sherri into his new song Houdini. So it seems like this is never going to go away anytime soon.
I think everyone is just I personally find it just so fascinating that somebody would keep lying and never stop. And, you know, we're all human. So in our nature, do we think we would ever do that or not? Or, you know, I mean, so I think it's sort of just an endlessly fascinating study of someone who really committed to something big and got away with it. And then, you know, kind of kept going and still keeps going.
And yeah, I think fascination with true crime, I mean, it just comes from a fascination with human behavior. And I think especially human behavior when it's pushed to these kind of extremes, I think that, you know, there's an inherent fascination with that. But I do think that Sherri's story is also just indicative of the time and place that we live in right now, where I do think we live in this era of manipulation. And I think that Sherri is this incredible vessel for that. She's this beautiful blonde white woman who was able to fool, you know, not only her husband and her family and her community, but law enforcement and FBI and the media for so long. And so I do think that what she did is sort of indicative of the sort of bigger culture of people feeling like there are manipulations going on, whether it's in politics or personal relationships.
You know, the fascination with Sherri is always to know is what is her true motive, and even so, we still can't even get that answer today from Sherri. But I would love to hear your theory on what you thought her true motive was, especially since you both worked on this documentary for such a for and saw all the evidence and everything else. What do you think her motive was?
There was probably a lot of different motivation if you really kind of dig into it, but I think at its core, she felt like she needed attention and perhaps felt like it wasn't going to be what it became, meaning she perhaps thought that it would be a weekend and, you know, her family would then feel, thank goodness you're back. And I think when it became a big national headline, the stakes got higher and it became a lot more complicated, right?
What do you think,
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the series we have the lead investigator in Shasta County, Kyle Wallace, where I think he gives to me one of the more convincing explanations, which is looking at Sherri. You know, she had just recently lost her job, which allowed her to travel. She was a traveling sales rep for AT&T, so she had lost that job. She had a severance package, but the money from the severance package was pretty much spent. Her kids were going to not be in daycare anymore because she was paying for the daycare because she wasn't working, and Keith didn't want to pay for daycare if she was going to be home anyway. So I think that she was at this inflection point in her life where things were about to change. She was about to be a stay-at-home mom. She wasn't getting this attention, this adult attention that I think she really needed, and had been sort of responding to. And just, yeah, like Allison said, I think she couldn't have imagined, I don't think, that it would have blown up the way that it ended up blowing up. And so it did end up having to become a lot more of I don't know, like a much bigger con, where it was at once maybe she could only be trying to fool her husband and their family. Now she has to fool law enforcement and the media. And so I think I can't imagine that she got what she wanted out of it in the end.
Well said, well said. Well, let me wrap it up with one last question for the both of you. As audiences have a chance to watch this documentary series soon, what is the one most important take you hope they walk away with after watching this series?
Mike, you go ahead. You go first.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, I think, you know, even though this is an incredibly wild story, I do hope that people come away with an appreciation for how complex human behavior is, and can still, you know, hold on to some type of empathy for, um, you know, everyone that's involved in that. And I hope that everyone remembers that these are all real people that went through this really traumatic experience. So it's, you know, it's not just a crazy story. It's real lives that are going to be affected. So yeah, I guess that's my takeaway.
Allison, last words?
Sure. I mean, I think for me, it's probably trying to see what these main characters in this story felt and experienced with something like this that surprised them. They had no idea. They weren't looking for it, you know, and watching them evolve and hearing how they handled things and, you know, the pain that it caused this community and this family. However, at the end, when Keith is like, okay, you know, he really is a resilient person who has been able to get through something really horrible. Not only did he think his wife was dead, she wasn't, and she was lying, and then she was lying about him, and then she was saying horrible things about him. I mean, that's a very hard thing for any human being to withstand, all like just one of those, not all of them together. So I also kind of hope at the end when you see Keith very much okay, you know, I wouldn't say the word inspiring, but it's very interesting. And it shows what a resilient character and human he is, that can still have a laugh and can still talk to us. And, you know, it's a lot to go through in 6 years and for your children to go through.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Michael, Allison, thank you very much for carrying this conversation with us for the docuseries Perfect Wife. Your storytelling is impeccable. I mean, it was riveting from start to finish, and when we thought we knew the story, you guys keep on adding more stuff into this storyline. So thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it.